design implications for your fact tables. So we've made it this far. We've identified the things that we do want to measure in our organization, and we tackled the dimensions first because that's where it's going to have the most complexity. We've settled on our star or snowflake layout. We've figured out how we're going to be handling slowly changing dimensions. Now it's actually time to answer the how much question. The data that we're going to be altering all the time, the data that we're going to be adding and changing all the time, are facts, the measurements, the actual transactions that take place. Now, you would think about it, there's probably not a whole lot that goes into fact table designs because we literally just want to store transactions, right? We just want to know what the facts are. The first thing you have to consider when we're talking about designing our fact tables is granularity. How granular do we want our data to be? Do we want this to store every single transaction that we do for all time? Or do we want to maybe sum up all the data for a day? Do we want to average the data over a month and then store that in our fact table? That's the first thing we have to figure out. And of course, the next thing we have to figure out is our column structure. And there's really one major thing you have to figure out, and that's how you're going to be handling keys. You see, in a fact table, we're of course going to have lots of foreign keys. This is going to be the keys that we're going to be referencing in the dimension tables. Something like customer ID, something like date, that'll be a foreign key. Something like product ID. And you see, once we've kind of added all of these things together, you could combine these together to make one primary key called a composite key. That's not an uncommon way to handle creating a fact table, or you could just go the old school, old-fashioned way and just create a primary key on your table and maybe set it with the identity specification. And then, of course, within your column structure, you've got the measurements themselves. This is going to be the thing that we're actually collecting the data on, the quantity, the price, all of the things that would answer how much. And then lastly, we would have to have metadata, of course. We want to have a written date, an update date, start or end date, lineage keys, any things that we want to have that would be able to track changes over time. And of course, I'm going to suggest we hop in the virtual lab, paste in our password to ClientNug, and let's take a look at how the fact tables were handled in the Wide World Importers Data Warehouse database. We'll go ahead and give SSMS a launch. We'll connect to SQL-Nug 2. Let's expand databases, the actual data warehouse database, tables, and let's check out some facts. Let's check out sale. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on it and just give it a select top 1,000 rows. Just to clean up the screen, I'm going to hide the Object Explorer. Let's take a look at what we have here. All right, right off the bat, we see a lot of things named key, sale key, city key, customer key, bill to customer key, stock item key, invoice date, delivery date, salesperson, blah, 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 you get the idea. There's a lot of keys, and these are all the foreign keys that are going to be referencing dimension tables. So let's clear the screen. I'm going to scroll over just a little bit here and check this out. As soon as we get into this area, we start getting the measurements themselves, the how much. Look, it even does a lot of calculations for us. It's not just quantity and unit price. They've also given us profit and tax items. They've even gone so far as to categorize how many were considered dry and how many needed to be chilled. This is a great way to show the different levels of measurements that can be stored in a fact table. So just because the dimension tables are a lot more complicated than the fact tables doesn't make the fact tables any less important. In fact, the fact tables are going to be the tables that are going to be written to by your ETL processes every single day as it updates all of the facts with the previous day's data. So spend the time to get the fact table right because that's the one that's going to be queried the most in the future. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.